Have you ever stopped to wonder? Why does your code sometimes seem to stare back at you with such a sharp, intent gaze, as if hiding something more than mere calculation beneath a calm surface? Or perhaps you recognize that odd, almost unsettling sensation that your code perceives something beyond your own limited vision, something unseen, mysterious, or even something otherworldly. Carl Jung, one of the 20th century's most significant thinkers and the founder of analytical psychology, offered a warning regarding a little-known but deeply important characteristic of cats. He spoke of a certain hidden aspect that even today remains misunderstood by most. What Jung discovered in these creatures has the potential to radically alter not just your perception of cats, but also your understanding of the latent psychological forces that guide your inner world and the depths of the collective unconscious, that mystical realm we rarely acknowledge, yet which constantly influences us. What you are about to learn might truly astound you. We will touch upon 3 key symbols that, according to Jung, prove that a cat is not merely a pet, but something far more ancient, intuitive, and psychologically meaningful. Our story begins with a young patient of Jung's who came to him with anxiety. For several weeks, the young man had been tormented by a recurring dream. In the corner of his bedroom sat a black cat. It didn't move, didn't make a sound, didn't do anything at all. It simply watched, night after night. Its gaze held a certain knowledge, a knowledge that the young man himself did not possess. Most people would dismiss such a dream as fantasy, stress, or simple coincidence, but not Jung. He pondered, then uttered a phrase that his patient would never forget. Animals in dreams, particularly cats, are living symbols. They represent what we have repressed. They embody our shadow. In Jung's view, the unconscious creates nothing randomly. Every image, every creature that appears in a dream carries a message. If a cat appears in a dream, such a potent and ancient archetype, it cannot be a mere coincidence. It is an attempt by the unconscious to reach the conscious mind, to shed light on what has been repressed, suppressed, forgotten, or rejected. In Jungian analytical psychology, this phenomenon is called the shadow, that part of our personality that we do not recognize, avoid, or are ashamed of. It encompasses our instincts, fears, desires, feelings that have no place in our official version of ourselves. And the cat, as a symbol, often becomes the messenger of this shadow, especially if it appears suddenly and inexplicably in a dream or in waking life. But here is where something truly enigmatic begins. After that session, the young man no longer dreamed of the black cat. However, he soon began to notice real cats everywhere, appearing in unexpected places, on the roof of a house, in a window across the street, in his own yard. He felt that cats had begun to surround him in reality, and this was no accident. Jung explained that when the unconscious is not acknowledged internally, it begins to project itself outward, and the cat, with its natural connection to mysticism, secrecy, independence, and almost witch-like intuition, becomes a bridge between the visible and the invisible, between the personal and the archetypal, between the conscious and the shadow. From then on, Jung began to pay even closer attention to the symbolism of cats. He viewed them as archetypes, symbols of ancient, instinctive, and universal forces at work within us. In his opinion, a cat is a kind of mirror, reflecting what we do not want to see in ourselves, the uncomfortable, repressed, forgotten, but still very much alive. And perhaps, if you have ever noticed a cat staring intently at you, for no apparent reason, without expressing any particular emotion, you were not simply experiencing its gaze. It was the gaze of your own shadow, reflected through an ancient and silent mirror. The cat, standing as if on the threshold between two worlds, the external and the internal, the earthly and the unconscious. And perhaps, within this silence, within this still, almost sacred stillness, lies the most honest encounter with oneself. For Carl Jung, cats were never just decorative animals or cute domestic companions. In his deeply symbolic and archetypal perception of reality, the cat became a living manifestation of ancient images, primal forces hidden in the most secret layers of the collective unconscious. From the mysterious rituals of antiquity to the disturbing dreams of his patients in the analysis chamber, the cat appeared again and again, not as a mere animal in the conventional sense, but as a silent symbol, traversing the boundaries of time and space, a messenger speaking not with words, but with its presence. Jung clearly saw the cat as an archetype, a universal image residing within each of us. Archetypes, according to Jung, are the primordial structures of the psyche, independent of culture, era, or language. They live in us, and we in them, often without even suspecting it. Among these timeless images, the cat occupies a special, almost mystical place. In ancient Egypt, it was revered as a guardian of the spirit, an ally of the goddess Bastet, and a guide between worlds. In medieval Europe, it was regarded with fear, becoming a symbol of witchcraft, sorcery, of that which defies control and evokes anxiety. In Eastern traditions, it was attributed the role of protector of the home and soul, a loyal guardian of the unseen. Jung believed that such cultural variations are not accidental. They are merely superficial expressions of a deeper truth. The cat is a symbol of that which cannot be tamed, that which eludes rational comprehension. It is the embodiment of both intuitive and irrational power, observing and waiting. It is connected to that which remains beyond the reach of control, beyond the bounds of logic, but within the heart of the soul. That is why, according to Jung, a cat never comes into our lives by chance. Whether in a dream, in a real encounter, or in a series of random observations, it always carries a message. Sometimes it's a warning, sometimes a call to awakening. When an archetype appears, Jung wrote, it is necessary to stop and listen. It cannot be ignored without consequences. A cat is not just a creature. It is a symbol of that part of your soul that asks to be recognized. Perhaps it is the intuition you have ceased to trust, or a wounded sensitivity you have learned to suppress, or a quiet connection to the mystical that has been crowded out by the hustle and bustle of everyday life. In one of his journals, Jung left a cryptic entry. Where there is a cat, there is a threshold between worlds, between the conscious and the hidden, between logic and mystery, between the personality and its shadow. He warned, the cat does not appear for comfort. It comes as an embodiment of the unresolved, as a guardian of your inner transition. Its independence, nocturnal vision, and mysterious behavior are not simply characteristics of the species, but metaphors for the human psyche. That is why, when a person experienced internal crises, existential searches, or emotional upheavals, Jung often noted that cats began to appear in his or her life more and more frequently. For him, this was a sign that the unconscious had begun to speak, not with words, but through symbols. And among symbols, in Jung's view, few are as deep, ancient, and multifaceted as the gaze of a cat, a gaze that looks at you without words, yet seems to know everything, perhaps even what you have yet to remember. Among all creatures, it is the cat, in Jung's opinion, that carries a special psychological and spiritual burden, mysterious, ancient, and deeply symbolic. As a result of decades of observation, clinical practice, and analysis of the unconscious, Jung arrived at 3 key revelations about the nature of cats. These insights not only challenged established ideas about animals, but also forever changed the way humans look at themselves. Revelation 1. The cat is the embodiment of the active shadow. For Jung, the shadow is the side of our personality that we are afraid to acknowledge. It's all that we repress, suppress, reject. The deepest fears, unconscious guilt, emotional wounds, repressed desires, and instincts that do not fit our ideal self-image. The cat, according to Jung, not only symbolizes the shadow, it is capable of embodying it. If, in a moment of emotional turmoil, a cat suddenly appears nearby, stares intently, or behaves unusually, this may not be the animal's reaction, but an expression of internal processes taking place within you. Jung noted cases where a cat would come to a patient only during periods of anxiety or intense emotional stress, as if drawn by unconscious energy. He perceived this as a message. The shadow seeks recognition. Unlike a human being, a cat does not run away from the darkness. It looks into it directly, calmly accepting it without fear. Revelation 2. The cat is a living channel of intuition. In a world where humans drown in thoughts, obligations, and imposed roles, the cat remains connected to the primordial. It lives not in the future, nor in the past. It dwells in the present moment, in the body, in the intuitive rhythm of being. Jung believed that animals in general, and cats in particular, are not as detached from the collective unconscious as humans often are. That is why they can perceive what goes beyond the rational. When a cat stares intently into an empty corner of a room, Jung suggested, it sees not emptiness, but something we are unable to perceive, an emotional field, a symbolic presence, a subtle energy movement. Cats are antennas of the soul. They sense changes, react to emotional currents, and pick up unconscious messages that are not yet accessible to humans. If your cat suddenly begins to behave strangely, it is not always a whim. Perhaps it is responding to something your psyche has not yet acknowledged. Revelation 3. Purring is a vibration of psychic healing. For most people, purring is simply a pleasant, comforting sound. But Jung saw much more in it. He considered cat purring as a deeply symbolic vibration, capable of affecting humans not only physically, but also on the level of the soul. It was akin to a meditative sound, a mantra, or an ancient incantation that penetrates within, envelops, and begins to restore lost equilibrium. Purring could soothe anxiety, relax the nervous system, awaken suppressed feelings, and restore inner contact with oneself. Jung intuitively felt that the rhythm of purring coincides with the natural frequencies of the body and psyche, creating something like a vibrational bridge between internal chaos and harmony. It is not just a sound, it is a frequency of healing, sounding through the ages as a reminder that the soul has a language that we do not always understand, but that we can feel. A cat, in the Jungian sense, is not a pet. It is a symbol, a messenger, a mirror. It appears not by chance. It does not bring something new, but something that has always been inside you, waiting to be encountered. And its gaze, that silent, all-seeing gaze, may be the gaze of the shadow, intuition, and healing, all at once. Perhaps it will remind you that the soul is not a myth, not a puzzle, not an abstraction. It is alive, it is watching, and it remembers. That is why Jung advised looking at a cat not as a mere animal, but as a figure saturated with archetypal wisdom, as a guardian of the threshold between worlds, between the conscious and the unconscious, between the known and the unknown. Perhaps, after all this, you will begin to look at your cat differently, with less familiarity and more openness.